You know, throughout this weekend, as I was thinking about the conversation we were going to have today, concluding the series on purpose, it kept hitting me how many events were coalescing at the same time to make this potentially a really relevant conversation to be talking about purpose. I mean, just thinking about Friday in particular, it's July 4th, and thinking at the biggest scale, like, what is the purpose of a country, of a nation, celebrating freedoms and things we'd be willing to fight for and what responsibility we have. But then thinking about at a more localized level, what Klein was just up here talking about that has become a national story, but at a localized level, the devastating floods of Central Texas these past couple of days that none of us could have prepared for. I know in a room this size, and especially when you add our online audience, there's just a really wide range of reactions to something like this. Some of you are just still finding out that something happened, you traveled, you're not online much, whatever it might be. Others of you, you had your lives completely upturned, or you're 1 degree of separation from somebody that has. A lot of us are in the middle, wondering what can we do, or how to feel, or feeling the overwhelm or the sadness as we scroll, and so on. Emily and I, my wife and I, we had a unique kind of few touch points to this in more of an odd way, not because we were so individually impacted, but there was an ABC article that listed the 6 intersections in Greater Austin to avoid because they were shut down and most prone for flooding. Our intersection, so we live, there's 4 houses on our corner, our exact intersection was listed on this ABC article, and it was a mistake. It was not shut down. There was no flooding, but we had people texting us all day long going, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, you're in the worst spot. Like, how can we help? And so there was a little bit of chaos throughout the day. We do, however, live about half mile from the San Gabriel River in Georgetown. And so we were walking down there like 4 or 5 different times yesterday and watching all of this take place. And if you haven't been to that part of Austin before, if you haven't been over like that Austin Bridge, this is San Gabriel Park, and I almost feel like you need to see what it looks like normal to even understand the scope of just what happened there. I mean, it's about 3 feet anywhere, average there, usually waist height, you can walk through it. The water reached to the top of that tree line. Like if you just, everything you see there, completely under a rushing torrent. Right, this next picture is just really grainy, but this is that same spot that I just took a picture a little bit up that way. This is that same spot, and then a little bit more clear. You're probably seeing stuff like this all over, your feed throughout the weekend. And we walked up to this, and you could hear from our house like there's this rushing, kind of waterfall type sound. We get up, and there's just people lining, all of the grass along, looking at this because we've never seen anything like this. And there are full-grown trees, just one after another, being upended because obviously the roots totally eroded, nowhere to stick, and just full trees. You see the root system up in the air and then going down along. And there was something about like being on the edge, being that close, and seeing so much on social media where you just have an appreciation for the power of this thing, a little bit of the fear, the anxiety that so many had to have felt, and it makes you just like one touch point more connected to so many of the devastating stories and so on that you're reading. And part of the reason I say that there's a relevance to these current events and what's happening and a series on purpose is because when you come across some of those why God moments in life, which for many people this feels like, it doesn't feel like somebody did something wrong, it's just a natural disaster, like a why God type moment. It's a lot of those moments that actually point us to some of the bigger conversations of life. Some of you, especially if you're a parent and you're watching stories, hugged your loved ones a little tighter. You sent a text message telling somebody that you love them. These are the types of moments in life, either at a localized scale or a bigger scale, that cause us to ask some of those purpose questions, that reprioritize our time. What do I do with this very finite life to make the most out of it? Things I should be grateful for, things I should reprioritize, how I'm spending my time. Like a lot of those conversations result from not when life is great, but when some of the lows of life happen and some of the overwhelms of life happen. And then the third event that has coincided with all of this is much more localized here to North Point, obviously the one we've been planning to and counting down to, and is much more in a celebratory lane, but that is Camp 75. And is the way in which we are for our community in the summertime here at North Point. We are sending out almost 700 volunteers to serve all week long throughout the area of Greater Austin. And it is not an exaggeration today to say that there are hundreds of people at North Point whose first touch point, whose kind of pivot in the road in their story of some of these bigger purpose conversations started with a Camp 75 of years past. whether it's because you received an invite from a neighbor to come to a home or to come and check it out on Summerfest, or because you had your kids involved and they were so excited you want to see what they were interested in, or maybe it was the first time that you served here and you experienced church is not just what happens on Sundays, but you connected your story to a bigger story and it had an impact on you and you wanted more of that, whatever it might be. There's so many of those stories. You see that all the times, weekly baptism stories that we share here on Sunday mornings. And I am speaking as somebody who has been impacted by that same experience. Somebody sent me just this past month a picture from 15 years ago when I was a student. And this is just such a wild picture for me to look at, not just because of the style and the long shorts and all that kind of stuff, but just thinking about that was a season of my life where I had none of these purpose questions considered, thought about, answered. It was a season of my life where I had a lot of turmoil at home. This was the year my parents had separated, and I was asking a lot of the big questions of life. I was not plugged into church anywhere. I don't know what I believed about God. I didn't think about him very often. But there was a group of people, a home who decided it was worth it to open their front yard for 75 minutes a week, a driver who figured it was worth it to take some time off of work and drive me around, a group of small group leaders and friends who created a space where I could be myself, I could push back, I could ask questions, I could have doubt, and I was allowed to just still belong and be a part of, and it changed the trajectory of my story in every meaningful area of my life. And I'm one of hundreds of people in the last 15 years since all of those Camp 75s in between. So to stand on the cusp of this moment, knowing how many potential stories there are, and how many of you are going to impact a story this week when you don't know what somebody is carrying and you don't know what they're going through, but just learning their name, shaking a hand, being available, opening your yard, that first connection point, you have no idea the domino effect that will have in somebody's life. With all of those things coming together, what we are trying to do is really answer the question of what is your purpose, your specific purpose. When I think about me in this picture, I had no clue where to start that conversation. This kid had no idea what his purpose was. Although about every 5 years, I was trying to guess again. I was trying to re-answer. It was like every 5 years, I'd reinvent myself. I remember when I was about 5 years old, I thought I had crystal clarity that my purpose was to play professional baseball for the then Cleveland Indians, now Cleveland Guardians. The problem was in elementary school, I played for a select baseball team in Ohio that went 0-27, which is, I think, is harder to do than going 27-0. Like, it is an impressive feat. I've heard the stories of Michael Jordan not making his sophomore team and all that kind of stuff, the legends. But I was a bench warmer amongst the bench warmers. Like, I didn't start on this team. And so I realized, man, I've got to reevaluate, try out some different priorities. So, getting older, realizing, I don't know, I kept playing baseball, but it's probably not the long-term plan. I remember I was about 10. There was a career week in elementary school. And I remember this back patio conversation with my mom, telling her what I wanted to do with my life. And I remember telling her, I want it to be big. Like, I want to cure cancer or something like that, something that changes the world. And I remember her specifically asking me, is there anything you don't want to do? And the only response I gave her is, I have a great uncle. His name's Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam was a priest. And I said, I don't want to be a priest. That's what I know I don't want to be. The irony is not lost on me how similar what I do today is. But I had clarity. I didn't want to do that. 15 years old, it changes again. Now it's like, the purpose of life is like find a girlfriend, make good grades, get into college someday. 5 years after that, I'm in my early 20s, and I'm just thinking about okay, now I don't want to eat ramen for the rest of my life. I need a job, and what am I going to do? And it's like the purpose conversation just kind of kept getting narrower and narrower and a little bit more me-focused throughout. And I reached in my early 20s what I thought was like a midlife crisis, although hopefully math-wise it was more of like a quarter-life crisis. But I just didn't have this question answered. And I think a lot of you, we could go our whole lives without really sitting with this conversation. Or maybe you've answered it in the past, but it needs a tune-up. You need to revisit and recenter on what is my purpose in this season. I asked ChatGPT if I was experiencing a midlife or a quarter-life crisis and if there's a difference. It gave me this very straightforward answer for what a midlife crisis is. Maybe you're experiencing this. No shame. This is a wonderful Sunday for you to be a part of this conversation. It said it's very simply a midlife crisis is a period of emotional turmoil. Typically occurs between the ages of 40 and 60, is characterized by a deep reevaluation of life goals, relationships, identity, and personal achievements. It can stem from the realization of mortality, we're not going to live forever, unmet expectations, or desired for renewed purpose and meaning. Very clean, very straightforward. That's you today. Again, I'm glad you're a part of this conversation. I asked it if there's anything different between a quarter-life crisis, and there's a really weird moment for me, because I felt like AI was like being sarcastic with me. Like, oh, you poor 20-year-old. I was like, well, what is this? It said, it's that magical season in your 20s when you question everything, your job, your major, and whether you'll be single, broke, and anxious forever. Whether $14 acai bowls count as self-care or are financially reckless. And then look at this. It said it feels like the jittery panic that sets in when you have bad Wi-Fi and too much cold brew. And I'm like, is anybody else weirded out that AI just named a feeling like I really can relate with? I know what it's talking about, not having good internet access, too much caffeine, like that was just, anyways, it spoke to it. I'm like, that's what I was experiencing. And in my 20s, I needed a series like this, but honestly, I think you could be any age and need a conversation like this. And in part 3 today, as we wrap it, we're trying to get much more granular. We're trying to get much more specific to you. The question we're trying to answer is, what is your purpose? Because so far, up to this point in the series, especially in part 1, we've kind of answered what you could say is our more generalized purpose, our universal purpose. Like, what is the purpose of humanity? What does it mean to be a human being? Like, what has God called us to? Buck talked individually in part 1. He said, if you have been created, then there's a whole different set of questions that follows that. Like, if we are a random accident, if we are cosmic dust, if we are rocks and can make noise, this whole conversation is not time, and we really should just do kind of whatever makes us feel good. But if you have been created, if there is a creator, there's a whole different set of questions that follows that, meaning you have been created on purpose. For what purpose is what should follow that up. I think about what Paul is saying in Acts 17. It's actually, Luke is the author of the document that is Acts, but Paul is standing up and speaking here. This is what kind of part 1 is about, summarized. He said, from one man, he, meaning God, made. He created. He made all the nations that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. It is not an accident where you lived. It is not an accident when you lived. Which really, I think, should bring a lot of us peace. We'll say things like, it's not an accident that you're here today, and we would think about a verse like this as justification like that. It's something that should bring you a little bit of calm and comfort, unless maybe you live in like Lubbock or something. I don't know. Then take that up with God. You should have follow-up questions. But for most of us, it's like, man, that's a comforting thing. I'm where I'm supposed to be right now. But why did he do it? God did this so that we would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him. Though he's not far from any one of us. He has placed you in a time and place. Why? So that you would know him. So that you would be in relationship with him. Your good heavenly Father who loves you and desires a relationship with you. About 500 years ago, some of the smartest minds in the world, especially in the faith arena, got together in Europe. There was political turmoil. There was a civil war happening in Europe, not so different from some of the wildness that we see around the world today. And these men got together and answered some of the most foundational questions about faith. And it was so important what they discovered that it still influences the church 500 years later. There were like printing presses come out, Bibles get into the hands of more and more people. Let's get back to the basics. What do we believe? Why do we believe what we believe? And in the series of question and answer statements, about 100 of them, they started with this first question: what is the purpose of man? Or in the old English way, it was, what is the chief end of man? And they said the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. Then you can go as deep as you want and do all the study and learn all the original languages, and what you're going to find at the end of that journey is the very simple truth that you were made to enjoy God, to be in relationship with him. It's what Paul is talking about in 1 Corinthians when he says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you drink, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. It's what Jesus is saying in John when he talks about what is like the secret of life. I mean, it's not an exaggeration. He says, this is eternal life, or this is life to the full life you're looking for, that they know you, the only true God. Not just know facts about God, but know God, are in relationship with God. The reason that I don't want to just skip through that, even though we're in part 3 today, is that so many people will go on a lifelong journey of searching for their specific purpose, only to get back to this basic truth that the whole time what I was looking for was ultimately just a loving relationship with God. I wasn't created to work hard or earn any kind of love for him or do things for him, but just to do life with him. It's such an important foundational starting point. If this is your first time in church in a long time, that's a huge pill to swallow to say, we've been together 15 minutes, here's the purpose and meaning of life. I get that might be the beginning of a conversation, but we can't really get on to your specific purpose without talking about that generalized universal purpose first. Because your specific purpose flows out of that identity. It flows out of that generalized purpose of all people. It's kind of like cause and effect. In light of who you are in Christ, this is now what you specifically have been called to do, how his love overflows through you to those around you. I say specific, I don't know, if I said like your unique purpose, it sounds too much like 1 in 8 billion. Your specific purpose you may have in common with thousands or even millions of other people, which is actually still pretty unique to you. But I'm talking about, how do you live this out? Because most of us, we have different wiring. Some of us, we're like, we don't think about this too much, just what's for lunch. But a lot of us, I mean, this kind of like plagues us. We want to know, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do next? What have I been called to? And it's the answer to that question. What does this specifically look like for you? In Ephesians, Paul says that we have been created. It's the same point again. He says we are God's workmanship. Other translations say masterpiece. It's actually like an art term. We are God's masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus. That's the identity. That's the foundational truth first. And the result is to do good works, which God has prepared in advance for us to do. Not to impress him, not for him, but with him, because it's the natural result of a loving relationship with Jesus. And so we have the natural question of, well, what do those good works look like in my time, in my space? Kind of the old, like more old school term would be to say, what am I called to? What's my calling? What has God prepared for me to do? And so for the rest of this series, really, because today is concluding it, for the rest of our time today, I want to try to land on just 3 general guideposts, 3 kind of pillars that you, if you will, that I hope are helpful, that I hope get a little bit more specific to answering, what does this look like for you? What is your purpose in light of that general purpose? See, there are all kinds of characters, Old and New Testament, that were called to very specific purposes. Like we don't today have the same purpose as Moses, who was to deliver his people out of slavery in Egypt. That was a specific purpose for him, right? One of my favorite verses in terms of like an inspirational one-liner quote, if you were to put it on a Letterman or get it tattooed or something like that, is a verse in Esther where her cousin Mordecai, which I just think is a cool name, is writing Esther a letter. She's just become queen. She's come into this authority, this power, and he's reminding her of what she's been called to do, basically encouraging her, speak up, use your voice in leadership, and save your people from genocide. And he's writing this letter to her, and he says, what a verse maybe you've seen before if you've been in church. It says, perhaps you were created for such a time as this. Maybe you were made for this moment. Maybe this is your specific calling. What an inspirational verse to say, like God might have this moment, this time, this conversation prepared for you. Which leads me into the first of our 3 pillars. And that is, as we get more specific, your specific purpose is often seasonal. It may not be lifelong. It may be something to reevaluate and come back to. But it's a starting point to think, what is unique about the season that I'm in right now? Some of you are 0 to 18, you are living at home with your parents, and this is an opportunity they take care of a lot of the responsibilities that you will have someday, and it's a beautiful time discovering who you are and building community and friendships and working hard and preparing for the future. Some of you are single. Some of you have time. I don't mean that you don't have responsibilities. I just mean as a result of that, discovering a skill set or working and building character, preparing for a day, maybe time to engage in to serve in a unique way in your local church. If you're young married, that's a season. If you have young kids, that's a season where it feels like the purpose is just to survive to the next meal. In reality, it's so much more than that, but it can feel that way. There's a season that is maybe empty nesterhood, whatever it might be. There are seasons in your career, whether you're a young professional or you're seasoned and expert in your particular field. There are seasons. And a lot of times people will say that to us, right? They'll say something like, it's just a season. And they'll say that when things are hard or difficult or overwhelming, because so many of us don't want to be in the season we're in, right? Most of us either want to go to the next season or we want to go back to some season we glorify. We just don't want to exist in the current season we're in. And so people will say this to us like, hey, it's just a season. And some of the most helpful advice I've ever been given from a mentor is it's just a season, so don't miss it. Yes, it is a season. And the opportunities available to you in this moment will not be there forever. So what is unique to you in this season? If you would, if you're this type of person at all, or maybe if you're not, you just even try it out today. If you take notes of any kind, so maybe like notes app on your phone, you could text yourself, you could open an email that maybe you'll send to yourself, something like that. Because this is a unique message where we're getting so individualized and so specific to you, I want to ask one question for each guidepost, one question for each pillar, that if you could actually jot a few words down, might help you get a fuller picture of what is your specific calling in this season for you. And so if you get your phones out and you're on it, I'm just going to trust that's what you're doing. You're not on social media texting people. I'll believe the best. But the first question, if you get out your phone and you choose the app for you, that I would want you to answer is, what is the unique opportunity of this season? What is unique about today that you won't have forever? Is it your youth? Is it an energy? Is it your health? Is it time, right? Is it freedom to decide what you want to prioritize? Are you in a season with a young family with young kids? Are you an empty nester? Are you young in your career? And while you wish you had more authority or responsibility, or you wish you were paid more, you're also in a season where you're learning and you're growing and you can adapt to the future and you're building your character. And we shouldn't aspire necessarily too much and too early. The weight that comes with higher leadership and the responsibility on those shoulders. Maybe you are further along in your career and you're in one of those seasons where you're the expert and you've built a lot of wisdom and you have the ability to be generous with the next generation, to invest in those coming after you, the leaders coming after you. What is it about the season that you are in that is unique to your specific season? As you answer those questions, you'll start to discover some of the answer to your question. I have a 1-year-old. My son Davis will never be one again. There are some unique challenges to that season. And I know at the same time, he will never trust me again as much as he does today. I will never have as much authority and influence in his life again as I do today. Every day that goes by, that is becoming less and less and less. So this is not a season that I want to wish away when things seem easier or calmer or however it is that I idealize the future. What is unique about the season that you are currently in? 2, as you jot down ideas for that question, 2, is that your specific purpose probably aligns with what moves your heart. We make the false assumption sometimes that the things we care about, everybody cares about. We're like, yeah, any just decent human being would be bothered or moved by that. And a lot of times, it is a unique burden that God has placed on your heart. What is the thing that bothers you? What is the thing that gets you emotional? You just see a 60-second clip on some social media, and all of a sudden you feel yourself tearing up. Like, what is that? What are they about? What is, your feed targeted you with? What is the thing that you wish you could change about the world, that you could add to the world, or you could remove from the world? This makes me think of Nehemiah. He's an Old Testament character who was not a king. He was not a priest. He was actually cupbearer to the king. So in all likelihood, he probably lived a comfortable life, except that his daily job was to put his life on the line by testing the food and drink of royalty for poison. That was basically his career and his calling. And one day, news reaches him that his ancestral home, Jerusalem, that the walls have fallen down via conflict, and this news reaches him, and he has an emotional reaction down to his very heart, a strong reaction at the beginning of Nehemiah. We see he's speaking from the first person, and it says, "When I heard this, I sat down and wept. In fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven." The rest of Nehemiah is actually like a treatise on leadership. But what it starts with is a why. It starts with the movement of his heart, of his emotion. He doesn't just feel emotion, he takes action, and he goes and he talks to his king and he switches positions, and it's the great work of his life that he stays focused on and empowers others. I mean, it's an incredible story, but it starts with something that moved his heart. So the second question, if you're writing yourself an email or sending yourself a text or in your notes app, the second question is, what breaks your heart? What moves you? What do you wish was different about the world? What would you change if you had unlimited time, unlimited resources? If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you change in the world? And for most of us, at least one of the things on that list is probably correlated to one of the most painful seasons of our life. That's just how this works for most people, because we know uniquely and can connect and empathize with uniquely people that are in similar experiences. We don't just throw out cliches to comfort, but we can sit and we can be with people. whether it's something you want to prevent others going through, whether it's something you want to help people that are in the midst of, give them hope that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So often, some of our most painful seasons in life, we have been uniquely equipped now to come alongside and help others in a similar journey. When you write down what some of those things might be that break your heart, the next step would be to do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Many of us will never even start because it's like, I could never eradicate that cause. I can't impact thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions, so I'll never even get started. There are about 3 billion followers of Jesus on the planet. If we all did for one what we wish we could do for everyone, we would change the world overnight. What's the thing that breaks your heart that you could just start with one, that you could just impact or influence or serve one? The third pillar, or the third guidepost, is this. It's that your specific purpose often aligns with your giftings, that you have a unique set of talents, of gifts that are specific to you. And again, we so often with these make the false assumption that anybody can do that because it's easy to you or it's life-giving to you, when in reality, that's just not the truth. We make that mistake in leadership. We make that mistake in relationships. We just assume people can do what we can do or like what we like to do. And in reality, you have some that are specific to you. I was in a men's group this past year, and one of the guys in the group said, I just greet people. Like I'm just on guest services. It's easy. Anybody can say hi to people walking through the door. And everybody in the room jumped on him. We're like, dude, we're in the social media age. We are the most socially awkward generation that has ever lived. If it is easy for you to make conversation with strangers, pay attention to that. Not everybody can do that. People want to do that, but that is specific to you. That is an incredible gift or talent to serve a lot of people and make people feel warm and welcome and connected and like they belong here. I wonder for you what it is that people notice in you. Think about, we've looked at a couple Old Testament characters here. Solomon is a really interesting example when it comes to this concept of purpose, because he's somebody that, at least according to the scriptures, has more wisdom than anybody's ever had, has more resources than anybody's ever had. Like if you're like, I had all the information and all the dollars, what would I do? Solomon is your guy, and he writes down his insights in the Proverbs for us, and he writes this in Proverbs 27. He says, let someone else praise you and not your own mouth, an outsider and not your own lips. Meaning if you don't know yet what is unique to you or specific to you, somebody around you does. The people that live life with you could point it out. The third question for your email or your text or your notes app is this: what do others affirm in you? What do people just knock on the door of your office, and it maybe even has nothing to do with your job, but they ask your insight or they ask you to do something because they know you're really good at this? What is the thing that people text you about or call you about? What do people say you're so good at? What is the thing? Do they say that you have great leadership potential? Do they say you're hilarious? Do they say you are a great listener, that you always have great advice, that you can communicate? Do they say that, man, you just get stuff done? It's just like an endless to-do list. Your energy is amazing. Or, hey, you don't really get stuff done, but man, you're creative. You have a lot of really great ideas. I love coming and getting ideas from you. What are the things that people say about you or ask help from you for? I want to be really careful. I was talking to somebody this week and they made a great point. This is the one that probably needs the biggest caveat because it can also become a poison very, very quickly. It's the reason that we have to go general purpose first. Where is your identity? Where is your value and worth? Because if you start to believe that your value and worth is what you can do for people or why people appreciate you, it's this slow poison that will kill you from the inside out. You are not talking about an identity conversation here. Why you matter to people because you have this skill or this gift. This is a way to serve people and love people out of the overflow of how it is that God has first loved us. So don't let it go into the identity range, but pay attention to what people are saying. There's a great Simon Sinek question that I love. He said, you should go around and you should ask some of your closest friends, why are we friends? And if they respond with, because you have a pickup truck, you need new friends, right? But they are going to notice. They're going to see what it is uniquely that you can do, what it is that you bring to the table. They may be so busy, they've never communicated it to you, but it's going to be easy for them. Just say, hey, I know this is an awkward question. I'm not looking for affirmation. This weird preacher guy at North Point told me to ask you this question. And just see how it is that they respond, because the people that work with you, the people that live with you, the people that are your closest friends, they know some of those unique value, those unique things that you bring to the table. Think about if you had an answer to all of these questions. And if you already do, I mean, you're so far down the road. But if you eventually had an answer to each of these questions, and you knew that your specific purpose is seasonal, you knew what was unique about this season, You knew that your specific purpose aligns with what moves your heart, and you had answers to what it is that moves your heart. And that your purpose aligns with your giftings, and you had clarity on the ways in which God has uniquely gifted you. How freeing would that be to take a step towards your specific purpose? As I was thinking about it, I was like, I could go through an example of like answering some of these questions for me and what this had looked like, if it's helpful, but I just don't know that it is that helpful because it's such a specific conversation. I'm in a specific stage of life that not everybody is in. And so I don't necessarily want to go through them from that perspective, but I thought what might be helpful is try to answer these questions at a broader perspective when we think about what it is that breaks our heart here at North Point. Because if you are a part of North Point, or if you're exploring, you're considering calling this place home, one of the likely outcomes of this purpose conversation is that you connect yourself to something bigger than you. That's one of the unique things that the church can place, or a place it can hold in culture, is that we are better together, that we can do more, pulling our unique giftings and resources and talents to make a difference in our communities, to love those around us. So that's why so often the results of this conversation is plugging into a local church and seeing how that is lived out around you. For us at North Point, we recognize we're in a unique place, a unique time, a unique season. We live in one of the fastest growing cities in the United States of America that consistently gets rated one of the most influential cities in America, because of the combination of politics and tech and business and entrepreneurship and politics and education and sports, right? Like all of that comes together, art and entertainment, live music. It ends up being a very influential city for the future. And we live in one of the most unchurched cities in the United States of America. Even specific here at North Point, we're in a season of growth. We're building our next building. We're excited for all that is to come with that, all the opportunities. It means new faces. It means new leaders. It means new people to serve. It means it's a very expensive season as we continue to run into and learn, but there is uniqueness to the season that we're in. What breaks our heart specifically, again, there are so many amazing local churches all over the world that are called to unique callings, unique niches, and that's part of the reason that the global church, the Big C church, is better together, is because we can address these causes at the local level. Here at North Point, what breaks our heart, although we wish we could fix and address everything in the world, is people who have unnecessarily walked away from faith, or unnecessarily have never given it a chance in the first place. And when I say unnecessary, I don't mean that your story isn't real, that if I sat down and heard it, I probably wouldn't have done the same thing that you do. What I mean is for any reason that doesn't have to do with the person of Jesus. Because church got messy, because people got messy, not because Jesus got messy. That's what breaks our heart, living in the unchurched city where we live. Those are the questions we ask. We want to know how we can constantly get better at that. Those are the relationships we want to build. We want to build trust. We want to learn. We want to meet felt needs and meet people where they are at, because that's what breaks our hearts. And in what we aspire to ultimately bring to the table or be good at, we say this all the time, this is the heart of Fort Austin. For too long, we believe the church has been known for what it's against. We want to be known for what and who we're for. Specifically, we are for people. We are relationship over policy. We are for the next generation. When you scan the constant elementary, middle, high school growth in our area, I mean, it is extraordinary, the amount of the next generation that lives here, and we want to invest in intentionally the next generation. And we are for our community, meaning we would want our community to miss us if we were gone, even if our community doesn't believe what we believe, because of the value that we add to our community. We are for Austin. It is the reason that we're doing what we're doing this week with Camp 75. And there were a group of people 15 years ago that believed these principles and created a space for people just like the teenager in this picture, and who will be doing that for so many people around our community this coming week. This is our heart to be for, to go out and serve, to serve with countless nonprofits all around our community this week, and to put on these 75-minute camps that create a space for people and families to connect with one another in the front yards and the backyards of homes. In fact, this is such a practical step to this week. This is not a Camp 75 message by any sense, but because it starts in 24 hours, if you're like, I want to take an immediate step in this conversation, we put those cards on your seats. If you're here with us online, you can go to camp75.org, but that will take you directly to the closest host home around you. If you have elementary age kids, this is perfect to attend and take your kids to 75 minutes a day each day this week, Monday through Thursday. If you have elementary age kids and you're like, should I host The answer is not think about it. The answer is yes. I just can speed up the process for you because the opportunity ends tomorrow to sign up and start hosting. We have actually 188 drivers and host homes this year, and our goal is to have that be over 200 by the end of the day today. We are right at where we need for drivers, which is an absolute miracle. If you've been a part of North Point for any period of time, we have 500 students we're driving around, but there's a lot of opportunities to send those 500 students out to host homes. We have a training right after the service, or we'll call you and let you know, hey, these are the parts of it, and you can sign up to host at camp75.org. But bottom line for the series, even beyond this week, when these next 4 days are beyond us, is you were created on purpose for a purpose. Ultimately, at the deepest level, to be in relationship with a loving Heavenly Father who is for you and has proved that by sending his Son for us to have the opportunity to have relationship with us. As you live out of that overflow, not for him, but with him, these questions might serve as a guidepost to you to say, okay, what does that look like for me? What are the unique works God has created for me? How do I love those he's put in my influence? What is the unique opportunity of this season that you are in? Because it is a season. A high season, a season of grief, somewhere in between. Those are all seasons. You are in a season, so don't miss it. Don't miss what God has for you in it. Second, what breaks your heart? Don't assume it breaks everyone's heart. And then do for one what you wish you could do for everyone, and you wish you could change the world overnight. And then finally, what is it that people affirm in you? Don't let it be your identity. Don't let it be a poison. But what do people celebrate in you? What do people see in you? What do people say God has gifted you with? And how could that be a tool or a resource to allow that love to flow from him through you to those around you? It's going to be an extraordinary week. We're going to be here to celebrate it for Summerfest next week with a brand new series. Would you guys pray with me as we conclude this one? Father, this is one of those enormous conversations, and some of us, we're in the middle of it. Some of us were trying to answer it. Some of us haven't given it much thought in a while. But why we're here, why we exist, they're a little more important than that, if indeed you have created us on purpose, for a purpose. And so in the wide range of stories we have, I just pray that you would meet us where we're at. Whether this is a season of grief, of loss, that's a season, and we can't rush through those either. God, where this is a season of change or transition or moving or new. God, if this is a season of overwhelm and no time and no resources, God, whatever we're in, would you meet us there and put on our minds and hearts what is unique about the time and place that we're in. God, show us what it is you've called us to do for one what we wish we could do for everyone. God, give us the peace and the confidence to see what it is you've gifted us with, what it is you've given us to go and love those around us. And God, as we navigate that, I'm just so excited to see what you do in each of our individual stories, to be a part of stories bigger than our own. We love you. We need you as always, desperately, and it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Thank you guys for hanging with us. We'll see you next week.